Josh, it's great to have you back on the show. It's been way too stinking long since we've talked.
It has, man.
But I can't be more excited about new music from you guys and just to be able to chat again. I remember last time being good, so you got a high standard of your own to live up to, man.
I don't like that.
Oh, man. So now I was trying to remember, I think the last record that you guys came out with, which I assumed for a long time was your last record, because it's been like 6 or 7 years since that thing.
That's a fair assumption.
What have you guys been doing?
Just a lot of fishing, no. We were with a label out of Nashville for that first record. And, we started to see the writing on the wall like 2 years in when we would send them demos, and they just kept no. So at first I was like, are we this bad? No. But I started to realize that it was just, they wanted nothing but the softer side of us, which is a big part of us, but it's not the full picture. And to do a whole record like that, it's just pretty dishonest.
Yeah.
So we went back and forth for years, literally doing Nashville writing trips, and it just kept growing to the point where we knew that they weren't going to do a record unless it was everything good and Changed My Life and songs like that.
Right.
And so we kind of made a deal with them where we're going to put out a single, and that was the song Here for a Reason. And if it charted to a certain whatever they were happy with, then they would go ahead and pull the trigger on the album. And if not, they would let us go.
Right.
And so it made the top 20, and that was not enough for them, and they parted ways. And so then we spent another 2 years just figuring out where to land. And it turns out, BEC, who offered us a deal in the beginning, they were, that's why I wondered, like, how dumb are we? Like, it's part of the journey. BEC has been amazing. And we have loved every second of it. Brandon Ebel, the president, I went to Nashville to meet with him, and he sat me down and said, we agree upon 3 singles. He's like, and you can do whatever you want with the rest of your record, which is unheard of. You just don't hear that from a label. And not only did he say it, but he stood by it. That guy never heard our album until it was turned in to be mastered.
Wow.
And so he trusted, gave us that amount of trust. And I just, holy cow. But yeah, it's been 6-7 years of just trying to find home, trying to decide whether or not we keep doing this. And I'm so happy that BEC and us partnered up, because for the first time in that 7 years, we're happy as a band. We're happy to make this music, and it's honest, and it's us, and it's real. And I didn't know if we'd ever get that chance other than doing an independent album.
Wow. So now that's got to be hard. You guys are, you're band guys. You guys play music. You guys write music. You do concerts. You do tours. This is kind of what people do. And I don't think that the average listener understands not only how that's got to be difficult, being more or less sidelined from putting out new music, but also just the idea of when you don't put out new music, it makes it more difficult to tour because you don't have something new to promote. And then like most performance-based jobs, there is an unknown expiration date on how long you can do it. As a singer, it's how long will your voice carry on and last. How long as a guitarist until your hand starts hurting, or whatever.
Yeah.
There's all these things that can and do eventually go wrong, and it may be when you're 80 or it may be when you're 45. But the idea of taking time off, it's almost like being a pro athlete, just saying, okay, just take a couple of seasons off and then come back and we'll see how it goes.
That's exactly how it feels. You're totally dead on, man. And you're right about when you don't put out new stuff, people love us in different pockets of the country, but they've heard these songs 10 times. They've seen this show, and we can do as much as we want to switch it up. But it's just, there's nothing new about it. And so that part's been brutal. Honestly, the last 2 or 3 years, we have toured less than ever, than pre-recording contract and everything. It's been sitting at home, and working jobs and just not knowing if we're going back out there on any grand scale or for any amount of time. That part, the waiting has been brutal.
Right. And then I would also imagine a big part of dealing with all of this comes in the fact that I've noticed, and you've been very smart to not bring up the name of the record label. That isn't necessary for the story at all. But when people send you messages on Facebook and are like, so what's the deal? And you can't say a whole lot because you're just like, well,
yes, exactly. And I'll say this too, to be very clear, we left them with a good relationship.
Yeah.
I don't think they were malicious in what they did. It's just, a new term that I'll probably write a song about someday, disposable heroes. I mean, that's kind of how it feels. Like, it's like when you have this one thing that they need or want, they're all about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as soon as that starts to fade, then it's, well, you're done. And that part's been tough. And yeah, you're right. People do message all the time. When's this happening? What's happening here? I'm like, I have no idea. I wish I knew. I wish I had an answer.
Right.
And today is one of the biggest days for me, because there's the answer. The album is out. Like,
that's right. Stop sending me messages. It's here. Oh, man. And at the time that we're recording this, because we're recording this on release day, I've already seen a picture that it's the top of the Christian iTunes charts for albums, and that's fantastic.
Dude, I woke up this morning and saw that, and I have never felt more overwhelmed or humbled. I, honest to God, did not expect that at all. I didn't. I thought, we got a fan base. They're going to respond. But to see it at number one is because the last album never hit number one. I think it touched number two for a second, like months after it came out. And people kind of realized who we were. But to see that out of the gate, it was completely unexpected. And this whole day is very surreal to me.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to talk to you about something maybe slightly more broad that does relate to kind of what you guys are seeing here. I think that the industry, at least, kind of has gotten this idea that rock is either dead, dying, or lame. And yes. I don't know exactly what all that's being based on, but here you guys are, a band that has not put out a record in almost 7 years, comes out with a new record. It shoots to the top over all of these other like praise and worship bands that are, just like dominating. And you guys come up at number one. Now, I don't know how long it'll stay there, but to me that says something. And I wonder if it's a perception that people who either work in radio or at labels either see, or they just think that that's what's going on because of some other outside influence. But I have to wonder, when an album like yours comes out in the circumstances that it has come out, if that maybe raises some eyebrows and people start to wonder, maybe we're wrong.
I sure hope so, man. And I want to answer that from the hippie artist side of me.
Sure.
I don't think there's a right answer, and that's the problem. I think in the business side of music, like you're trying to formulate it, like labels, management, everybody, they're trying to, what is the answer? How do we sell more records? How do we blah, blah, blah?
Right.
And I think the only answer is honest music. And I don't think the genre has anything to do with it at all.
Right.
Like, I think it could be a rock album. It could be a jazz. It just doesn't matter. I think the public, we give them too little credit, man. They read between the lines, and they know when something is you just did that because you hoped it would sell a record. Yeah. And that's what I hope gets communicated from this, from our point of view, is that, man, as artists out there, if you're trying to put out a record, be you and roll the dice. Because we did, like, we talked about this, and we knew this could be our last record. We knew it could completely bomb. And our thought was, well, let's go out with our heads held up. It's not about street cred or anybody thinking we're cool, but this is an album we can stand behind. And if no one likes it, that is okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is not, we're not making this up for anybody. We're hoping you like what we like. Yeah. And we'll find out,
Absolutely. And I'm 100% with you. I mean, it's interesting that this topic would come up kind of 2 weeks in a row, but last week we had Jason Dunn, former lead singer from Hawk Nelson, on the show, and he's starting a new band called Aid and Effect that is going back to that Hawk Nelson of old roots.
Oh, cool.
With 2/3 of or 3/4 of the band getting back together for it from the original lineup, which is fun. And he was saying that when he left Hawk Nelson, it was because they kind of wanted to go in the current direction of Hawk Nelson, the way they are now. Right. And he just really wasn't with that. And he thought back to a conversation that he had with Dana Key. And Dana Key said, "What are you?" And he goes, "What do you mean, what are you?" He goes, "What is it that's a passion for you?" And he goes, "Well, I would like to think that we're a rock band and I'm a rock guy." And he goes, "Okay, well then do that. Be that." Yep. And it's like, and it's sad that it's that simple, but so often we overthink everything. It's like, okay, well, if that's what you're passionate about, that's what you're good at, do that thing. Don't try to be something else. Just be that thing.
Yeah, and I really believe that level of honesty prevails. And if you put everything you have on a trend or a fad, be it in music or anything else, man, none of that's forever. It can't be.
Right.
Like, it just can't be.
Right. And it's nice to be able to look back on what you've done and go, you know what, that was good. I'm proud of that. Not just that made me money for a year and then it imploded and now I'm just kind of a dork.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Yeah, it's just like it's all temporary, man, at best. And so Yeah, that's awesome to hear about him. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, since the new single has come out, the new rock single is Rise, let's talk about that song. Give us kind of an insight about that one.
Man, that song, we played it live a couple times already, and
Nice.
I love that song. But I love honestly, like, this is a weird statement to make, but lyrically, the verses in that song are probably, if I were proud of anything over 15 years, it would be that.
Wow.
Because I think it is gut level honest. I think that, you hear it all the time. The world around us it is growing colder, man. But I think every generation thinks that, right? Like, I think every time a new generation comes along, this is the next worst thing. But it's kind of like what you said about Jason being the rock guy. It's simpler than we make it. If we just focus on God and love and who we're supposed to be, you really can rise above the nonsense. You can rise above the noise. I mean, I've struggled with depression throughout my life. I, at one point, had a suicidal moment, and I realized, looking back, it's when I'm focused on me, when I'm focused on the problems, when I'm focused on what's not good, it puts me in that dark place, and I want to get outside of that. I want to follow Jesus. Like, I'm not saying that to pander. Like, I'm too old for that stuff. Like, I really want to follow Jesus and be who he wants me to be. And it's when I'm focused on that I feel at my best. It's when I'm focused on that I don't feel down or depressed or bummed out about the things I can't control, because there's 1,000 things happening in America and the world right now that I can't control. Mm-hmm. All I can control is my response to my Creator. Yeah. And I don't always get that right. But in the moments that I do, that's when I do feel like I'm rising above just a mundane life. And just, life can seem pointless sometimes for anybody, I would think, feels like Groundhog Day. But, like, this record's a good example. Like, we took chances, we focused, we put out something that was what we wanted it to be. And that was all through just life experience and through channeling the good, the bad, but in all of it, just focusing on our Creator, man.
100%, dude. I think that's right on point. And I think it is about focusing on the things that are good and that are something to aspire to, rather than just doing nothing but looking down at the lava and trying not to step on the lava all the time. Because and it's funny because, I mean, and I don't want to step on any toes. I don't think anybody who would be in this camp who's listening to this show, but you see all the people's, outside of concerts, Christian or not, holding the signs, talking to everybody about them going to hell and about why what they're doing in that moment is absolutely wrong. People don't tend to gravitate towards that because it's very obvious that they're focused on the absolute worst negative of everything. Yeah. And people, whether it's good or bad, I mean, there are some moments when you need to have your problems pointed out, but that's not something to, I mean, the whole catching flies with honey thing. Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, people need something to go towards. When you show people something bad, they tend to run away from it.
Yeah. Well, and like for me, like I've been a believer since I was 12 years old. You don't have to tell me I'm broken. I get it. Like, yes. I know that I am garbage and that I know why I need grace. I'm fully aware. And so, like, feel free to point out my flaws, and that's fine. I'm not going to be offended by it. But like you said, it's not necessarily helping me in the process. Right. In the course of that song, I think it's important. Like, it's kind of a throwaway line at first, but let the fire inside of me take me over. Like, I don't want a mundane life. I'm not interested in it. Yeah. It makes me cringe. You know what I mean? It's not that, I want this wonderful, fantastic world traveling lifestyle, but I want to live. Like, I don't want to spend, I'm 38 now. Maybe I got another 38, 50 years. I don't know. Who knows how long I'm going to live, but I don't want to live Groundhog Day. I don't want that. Yeah. Like, I'm not interested at all. Yeah, for sure, man. That's fantastic. You guys finally get back in the studio after recording one single in 2014. And what moment in the studio was a big polarizing moment that just really, I guess, was an example of what you guys wanted or had been missing, that just really said, this is it, this is the reason why we're doing this? The moment my rhythm guitar player Ryan pulled out his trumpet. Nice. Stands out to me. Yeah, it's so his story, he graduated, he did 4 years full ride playing jazz trumpet. Wow. And we've never used it. And part of it was us. And then part of it, once we signed the label, was like, yeah, you don't use trumpets and this kind of thing. Right. You just don't, And then we got to the point where we're like, you know what? Like, this is part of who we are. This is something that we've not even tapped into ourselves. Right. And I remember us all standing around the mic in the control room while he's recording this trumpet part on one song. And it was like, you know what? This is us. This is it. Like, we're free. Like, There's nothing keeping us from being who we are right now. Not even ourselves, not even our own insecurities. Because part of it was me. I remember in the past we thought about it, like, even I was like, it's not cool. You know what I mean? But he's a huge, massive part of our band. Oftentimes 60% or more of what you're hearing in the song is something he recorded.
Right.
And so even that moment to affirm that and say, you know what, this is something you're passionate about, you're great at. I mean, holy cow, you got paid to go to school for it. So, you know, and so we did that. And then on the same day, I think it was, there's a song on the album called Captain, it's a song for addicts. It's a song that deals heavily with alcoholism and just finding freedom. He wrote, I can only describe it as like a 21 Pilots, like rapid fire sing rap kind of situation.
Okay.
He wrote this part. And so me and Mikey from Seventh Time Down, he was our producer. We're sitting there and all right, Ryan, show us the part. And Ryan sang backup, but he's not very confident in his voice. He's singing this part, and me and Mikey both kind of look at each other. We're like, you got to record that. He's like, what? He's like, no, Josh is going to do it. I'm like, no. I'm like, no one's going to sing it the way you're singing it right now. And so that was another moment, both involving Ryan, where he couraged up and he got behind the mic and he recorded his first lead vocal.
Wow.
And that was a big deal for us too, because like no one's ever sang another lead part on our album. In fact, the last label album, I even did all the harmonies. We didn't do any of that this time. We're like, let's just make it what it is.
Wow, man, that's fantastic. I love both of those stories, and I also love the idea of what you said about, you know, like, well, we're doing this even though it's not maybe considered cool, but it's like, who writes these rules anyway?
I know, it's so dumb, and then we fall victim to it. Like even me, when I'm writing a song, I'll write something and I'll like it, and I'm like, nah, but that's never going to work. Why? Yeah. Like, how do I know what works and doesn't? Right. Who thought 21 Pilots would work?
No kidding, man.
They don't make any sense, but they're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And this I also found was funny. I heard about this on a podcast. Their drummer was the drummer for a short time in the band Waverly, but they kicked him out because he wasn't good enough.
I love that so much.
They're like, yeah, he's not quite, you know, we need somebody a little better. And then they were talking about that. They're going, yeah.
I have to text the Waverly lead singer now and tell him this story. I'm just rub it in his face. I love it.
Yeah, so you should. Because they were like, well, I mean, he wasn't as good then as he is now. Like, yeah, but he plays like 300 dates a year now.
In stadiums, by the way.
In stadiums, playing to not Christian audiences, just everybody.
Yeah, I just want to be a tech on one of their tours. That'd be crazy. That's awesome. I love that.
And I think they had the biggest, what was it? It was they were in the Guinness World Book of Records for last year for two different things. I think one of them was like the most streamed album of the year by a group, and the most streamed, it was either rock song or alternative song by a group. But they were like, and it was several billion plays. I'm just going, good grief.
Yeah, it's insane.
By two guys.
I love that though, because that's what the world needs, man. Like, okay, so another friend of mine, I'm not trying to name drop. It's not like we talk on a regular basis, but NF, he did a month-long tour on our bus.
Nice.
3 or 4 years ago. And what I remember about this guy was, so I walked into sound check in Nashville when we were doing tour rehearsal. It was Cutlass, NF, us. And I walk in, I knew he was going to be on our bus. I knew he was a rapper, and that was it. And I walk in during his sound check, and I literally remember thinking, there is nothing better than this in hip hop.
Yeah.
And no one knows this kid's name.
Right.
And he was, I think, 22, 23 at the time. And to see what's happening for him now, knowing that he has not changed one thing other than getting better at what he does, that's another example to me. Like, you know, people were terrible to that guy. I remember he just got crapped on for years by the industry because he didn't fit. And so now look, like, you know, he still doesn't fit, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's awesome to me.
Now he's had the number one song the number one album in the country right out of the gate.
Exactly. Like, unbelievable. Yeah. Like, okay, good. I'm glad he didn't fit, because we wouldn't have had that. We wouldn't have heard that.
And he outsold Lecrae. No one saw that one coming. Oh my goodness. It's just so crazy how that can happen, man. So crazy. Well, since you kind of referred to touring, you guys finally have something new to tour on. What's the future looking like for that at this point?
I am so excited, man. And the master plan right now is to hit it hard in the spring and hit all the festivals.
Cool.
Kind of the thought there was the album came out so late in the fall that it's kind of too late to really do anything. And we want people to have it in their hands, people to know the songs, tours.
Right.
Because when we tour it, I mean, the show is probably going to be 70% the new album. First of all, because we're sick of playing the old songs.
Yeah, that does
and
happen.
I think a lot of people are sick of hearing them. We'll play some of the favorites.
Right.
But, for me, when I go to a show, like I remember the second time I saw Switchfoot and I finally knew like all their songs. I mean, it's a whole different show to me. I was like, I'm singing along. I'm seeing they're doing things different from the album that I wouldn't have noticed before.
Right.
And that stuff's important to me. So I think, come springtime, this thing will have had some life to it and, people will kind of expect something from it. And that's when I really want to get out there and do it.
Cool. Well, I know we're probably running short on time. So I want to ask, number one, is there anything else that you really want listeners, fans, new or old, to know about you guys from here going forward?
At our age, and we're all family men now, this album for us is way bigger than an album. It's kind of I don't want to call it a make or break point, but it's very close to that. So for us, we're putting this album out to see if there's demand, to see if people want to hear it, to see if people want us to tour it. A little bit of a fleece for us, I guess. And so overwhelmed by the response. Grateful is not even the word. You can't start out better than we did with this album. Man, if you're a fan of the band, please just hang in there and keep showing that support. And we promise we're going to tour this album, and hopefully we just keep going from there. And if this thing's still working, promise from the band that we've talked about at depth is that we will never go this long without music again. So if this is something that's working and the fans want to hear, we're just going to keep it coming.
Fantastic. Well, that was a question I thought about asking, but I thought that was maybe a little bit much. I was going to say, so is it going to be another 6.5 years before we do this again?
No, we can't do that, man. We'd hang it up before we do that. We'd say goodbye.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Well, dude, good on you for sticking in there that long.
Man, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the last question is one that I like to try to ask everybody. And if I asked you this 6 years ago, I'm sure that there's a high probability that the answer will be different at this point. But,
oh, gosh.
Josh, as the lead singer of Ashes Remain and as a rock star extraordinaire, bon vivant, man about town, what is the most un-rock and roll thing about you?
Oh, I got a good one. I got a lot of good ones. But this is one of my favorite stories. We got to play, it's part rock and roll and then part very not.
Okay.
We got to play an arena show in Baltimore, which is our hometown. It was after a soccer game, kind of the faith and family night kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my son was, I think he was still 1.5 at the time. So we're backstage in this giant arena and he's running around and I pick him up and like he spits up all over me. Like, I mean, just all over my shirt. And as he's finishing, I hear, "Ladies and gentlemen, Ashes Remain." I'm like, this is unbelievable. So I'm grabbing a towel and just like wiping, like trying to turn my in-ear back on. And so it's like we play this killer show and like people are into it. But the whole time I'm thinking they have no idea that my son just yacked all over my shirt 3 seconds ago.
Wow, man, that's a great story. I love that. That is truly unique. I don't think anyone else has ever at least claimed the fact that they had a child throw up on them right before going on to play in front of a stadium of people.
True. I mean, I wiped it off well enough that it probably just looked like a wet spot on my shirt, but it was bad.
Yeah. And I'm sure having to inhale the fumes of that for an entire set, which you kind of have to breathe deeply when you're singing. So I can imagine that was less than fun, too.
I loved it, though. The whole time I'm thinking, this is real life. Like, yeah, because you're right. People think, oh, he's going to get on the bus and go to the next city. I'm like, no, I'm going to go find a clean shirt and see if I can get this kid to go to sleep.
It's like, I'm going to hope that we have at least one box of shirts in the back of somebody's vehicle.
Yeah.
That's great, man. That's great. Well, dude, thank you so much. And not only I know that you're making the promise that it won't be another 6 years. Well, I'm going to make a promise that should you keep that promise, or even if you don't, we'll talk again sometime within the next year or so. And I can't wait to see how things go. I know that they're off to a good start. Let's hope that it continues and that this is only a new beginning and not the beginning of the end, my friend.
Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely.